Before we get into anything, can we just take a second to appreciate what Ilia Topuria is doing here? This man is holding a full press conference for himself, on his own. No UFC production behind it, no pre-fight media obligations, just Ilia putting the spotlight on his fight, on his terms. And honestly, this is what more fighters should be doing. Now, sure, it might not work for everybody. Not everyone's got the star power Ilia has right now. But when someone like him does it, you can feel the gravity. People tune in. Because, like it or not, Ilia Topuria is one of the biggest rising stars in MMA today. And, let's be real, UFC should be backing this kind of stuff more often. Not just a quick sit-down at media day or the usual pressers during fight week. We're talking fighter-led promotion. Especially when it's a matchup like this. Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria is a big fight, and it's great to see at least one of these two doing more to promote it. It's not even officially fight week yet, but with Ilia in Las Vegas already and talking like this, it already feels like fight week. And listen to what he said when they asked him how it feels to headline International Fight Week. He straight up says he remembers being on the prelims just a few years ago during the same event, and now he's headlining it. That's the climb. That's the real story of a rising star. And what makes it even more insane, he didn't even bring up who he beat in his UFC debut, Youssef Zalal, who himself was being looked at as a future top featherweight. Ilia's been on a mission from day one. Now, when we talk about Ilia moving up in weight, this isn't just about cutting fewer pounds. This is about transformation. He said it himself, those extra 10 pounds changed everything. At featherweight, he had to diet like a maniac for 12 straight weeks. Couldn't enjoy life. Couldn't even focus fully on fight prep. But now, he's thriving. This new version of Ilia is able to dedicate more energy to being a better martial artist, not just surviving the scale. And let's not forget, this isn't like that Jai Herbert fight. That was a short notice jump to lightweight. He was replacing Mike Davis, didn't even have a full camp. So, whatever version of Topuria we saw that night, that wasn't the real lightweight Ilia. This time, he's locked in. Now when it comes to Charles Oliveira, Ilia's being respectful, but he's confident. And that's a dangerous combination. When asked if Charles was a tougher fight than Islam, Ilia didn't really commit to either. He said, every fight is difficult at this level. But that's actually kind of wild. Because most would tell you, Islam is clearly the tougher challenge. Ilia, though, that's low-key a huge compliment to Oliveira, comparing him to arguably the no 1 pound 4 pound fighter on the planet. That tells you what Ilia thinks of this matchup. But then, Ilia drops the bomb. He believes he has the advantage in the grappling too. Not just striking, not just movement, grappling against Charles Oliveira. That's insane confidence. He says, if he has to submit him, he has the ability to do it. And then he says it straight. He's either knocking Charles out in the first round or submitting him in the first round. Just the way he says it, calm and certain, reminds you of a prime McGregor. Not because of the trash talk, but that unshakable belief that he's levels above. And, let's be honest, Ilia might be right about Charles walking forward being his downfall. That's what makes this matchup so intriguing. Unlike Islam, who's more calculated with his pressure, Charles tends to close the distance quickly and throw down. That could be tailor-made for a precise counter-striker like Ilia. If he lands clean end, we know he might be over. Especially if he really hits as hard as he claims. And you know what? Maybe he does. Ilia believes he hits harder than Chandler, Dustin, and Geithja. That's a bold statement, considering they're all natural lightweights and known knockout artists. But let's not forget, Josh Emmett was the only guy who could take Ilia's best shots for 5 rounds. Guys like Volk and Herbert crumbled. Even Holloway didn't make it out of their fight. So yeah, maybe Ilia's power is just different. Now, think about this. If he beats Volk, Holloway, and Charles back-to-back, we looking at the greatest 3-fight stretch in UFC history. He smiled when they asked him that question, pretending like he wasn't sure. But come on, he knows. That's an insane list. The only thing that comes close is Henry Cejudo beating DJ, TJ, and Marlon Moraes. But even then, TJ dropped to flyweight and tested positive. Moraes didn't reach the legendary status of guys like Max, Volk, and Charles. Ilia's run would be untouchable. Now, here's where things get really interesting. The talk about Islam ducking Ilia because he moved up to welterweight. Ilia shut that down. He said Islam's just chasing his own goals, just like Ilia is at lightweight. He's not throwing shots anymore. He's being real. It's refreshing. And it kind of ends the whole ducking narrative. If Islam moved up and Ilia moved up, neither of them are ducking anybody. They're just doing what's right for their own legacies. And when asked if that fight could still happen, Ilia said, Yev, he wins the lightweight belt, and Islam wins at welterweight. That's a super fight waiting to happen. He's even willing to move up to welterweight to make it happen. Imagine that. Ilia at 170, chasing greatness. He'd be one of the smallest guys in that division. But his skills might be enough to make up for it. Then there's the Paddy Pimblett question. And of course, Ilia said Paddy needs to win one more, which is fair. There are killers in that division who deserve a title shot first. But if Paddy beats someone like Arman Sarukian, that changes everything. That would set up one of the biggest fights in UFC history. Ilia versus Paddy for the lightweight title in Spain. Santiago Bernabeu Stadium. Nearly 100,000 fans. That would break every UFC record, and it makes perfect sense. Two huge stars, a history of beef fighting in Ilia's home country. Only problem, Ilia says he doesn't want to fight at 4 a.m. local time. And he's right. Fighters should compete at their peak, not when their bodies are barely awake. He said, if the UFC can schedule it at prime time for Spain, he's all in. If not, he'd rather fight in the States. And that's totally understandable. Still, if Dana's experience promoting Canelo versus Crawford at Allegiant Stadium goes well, maybe he reconsiders stadium shows going forward. There's hope. Then they asked Ilia how he feels constantly being matched up with fan favorites Volk, Max, Charles. And he gave a slight smirk. Said he doesn't care, but yeah, it's kind of weird. Ilia is becoming the guy who beats everyone's heroes, and he beats them bad. Volk, out cold. Max, stopped. Charles, we'll see. But Ilia folds legends like a lawn chair. And that's exactly why fans are torn on him. They respect him, but they don't want him to beat their favorites. And that's why Ilia ends up playing the villain. But if he ever fights someone like Arman, he might actually be the fan favorite for once. When asked how he wants to be remembered, Ilia didn't even hesitate. Lightweight. He's putting down roots in this division. He's not here to bounce around. He wants to make history here, beat Charles, maybe fight Paddy, Arman, maybe even Islam. This is his new home. And his resume at lightweight could become one of the best ever. And finally, when asked if he hopes to one day be loved like Max, Volk, and Charles, Ilia said he's already a fan of those guys. He respects them, he loves their styles. But when it comes down to it, this is competition. And in that cage, he's going to do what he does: finish legends, make statements, and climb the ladder to greatness. So there it is. Ilia Topuria, talking his talk in two languages, holding his own pressers, setting his own legacy. This guy is doing everything right. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the press conference and what you think about Ilia's confidence going into this fight. Can he really knock out or submit Charles in the first round? And what do you think about him calling himself a better grappler than Oliveira? Let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next one.